Welcome to the Books on Air podcast. I'm Suzanne Harris, and my listeners get the story behind every book. Joining me today is a fascinating gentleman. His name is Dr. Merlin Pickston, and he's here to talk about his book, Awaken and Journey to Your True Self. Dr. Pickston is a teacher, a coach, and a mentor. He has a doctorate in metaphysics, and he teaches from a place of having worked his own way through his own journey. So this is a very personal book. As a psychic medium and a channel, he uses his connection to other realms to bring additional insight to help others on their own awakening journey. Dr. Pickston, welcome to Books on Air. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here.
You know, authors write books for a variety of reasons. Some of them, as children, they're influenced by a particular author and they become fascinated by the idea of writing. Or there's a teacher at school who says something about something that they have written, and all of a sudden they're encouraged to write. Some authors have events that happen in their lives, either positive or negative, and they feel obligated to share those events with the world. I'm curious about why you decided to share your story and write your book, Awaken and Journey to Your True Self.
Well, it started actually with, I think in your introduction you described having kind of been on my own journey. So I'd been on my own awakening journey and going through some extremely challenging times, particularly with my wife's illness at the time. And it's kind of encouraged me to take a path of kind of the positive side of dealing with all of these challenges and, you know, what I had to do for myself. And then I did, obviously I did my doctorate before I read the book, and the research that I did really kind of then helped to begin to formulate the ideas for the book. And the research I did was on self-mastery, and I did questionnaires and had respondents from about 50 different countries from across the world. I was talking to them about how they awakened, what they did once they had a spiritual awakening, and there were various kind of issues in relation to, you know, the challenges that they came across. What practices that they did, how they changed their life. And there were just so many amazing similarities in people's stories through these questionnaires. And then I did some in-depth interviews, and it really created a very clear picture to me that there was some consistency in what people were going through and what they were experiencing. And then really the core message, I've had this idea for about 5 years, and I'd inquired with a publisher and didn't do anything about it because of the circumstances in my personal life. And then I got a message from one of my spirit guides who said, you need to write that book now, and you need to make it really simple, easy to understand, lay it out in a way, demystify all of the spiritual jargon that's out there, because this is what's needed at this time. 3 days after I had that message, I had an email, randomly you might say, from the publisher to say, am I still interested in publishing a book? So
amazing.
The synchronicity of how that happened was just incredible. So yeah, I kind of sat and went, like, okay, let's just get on and do it. So that's kind of how it happened.
You know, if you believe that the universe speaks to you, that was tapping you on the shoulder. That was not just speaking. I love the fact that in the book, the book is so comprehensive. First of all, it's just jam-packed with information. But you have examples, you have activities, you have exercises, and you have meditations. So this is a real hands-on book. One of the things that I would like for us to do, since it is so comprehensive and there's so much information, would it be okay with you if we talk about each one of the individual sections and give our listeners some highlights from each one of those sections so they'll sort of get a feel for the whole book, just a feeling for the kinds of things that you have in it?
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect way of doing it.
In your introduction, you do share your personal story, and you have been through quite a bit of pain in your life. One of the things that jumped out at me, and you know, I read and I look at a lot of different things, and I have heard this over and over and over, and I was so pleased and interested to see this in your introduction. You talk about the power of journaling. Tell me a little bit about how that became a part of the introduction.
Journaling for me was a way of being able to express things from my heart. It was a way to be able to just put pen to paper and just see what came out. Often what happens for a lot of people, and for me also, was that we focus very much in our minds and in just the daily tasks and the things that we're doing in our lives. And to just spend some time and actually sitting down and journaling how I was feeling that day or what was going on for me really helped me to understand myself in a much deeper way, in a way that really kind of gave me clarity to, okay, so that's what's going on with me. That helps me to recognize why I felt like that, or why I reacted in this way in that situation today. And so it brings things to the surface and gives them light and clarity that can help people to then go, okay, so if I really want to make a change for myself, now I can see what's going on for me in a much better way. So that's what kind of journaling does that for me. And for me, that's why it's in the introduction. It's a real important aspect if people can get into doing journaling.
See, I've heard everything that you say. I have heard so many positive things about people when they journal, because it's a different, you go to a different place. And when you're journaling, people can do it either electronically or they can do it physically and actually keep it in some sort of notebook or physical kind of way. And I've heard that that's a better way to do it, because you've got your hand connected to your brain, and your brain, is helping you write whatever it is. And all of a sudden you look at what you've written on the page, and that's what happened. But when you see it written, it changes the way that you interpret and changes the way you understand it. I thought that was so powerful that you put that in, especially right now. I think you have your finger on the pulse of where people are with this COVID-19 situation, and you also address that in the introduction. Tell me about what you think some of the impacts are for us as human beings with the pandemic.
Yeah, it's an important aspect here, because what people did is a lot of people were forced into a situation where they were having to put the brakes on their life. So they weren't allowed to go and do all the things that they normally did. And so the kind of autopilot routine that they were in on a day-by-day basis suddenly stopped. You can't go out of your house. You can't go to work. And so, okay, what do I do then? Well, I have an opportunity to now evaluate my life and to see things in a different way. And some of the clients that I have been working with, they have made some quite major changes in their lives, whether it be through choosing a different career, or even where they're ending relationships and realizing, why have I been doing this for all these years? And so it's really kind of made people take stock. I think there's another aspect as well, is that it's made people feel like, okay, so if this can happen in the external world, how do I respond to it? How do I react without it making me go deeply into fear? fearing that I might get ill, feeling my family might get ill, fearing, any number of things. And so I think it's been very, very challenging for people's mental health to have to kind of really have a look at all of those aspects of things, and do it all in a very, very short period of time. So that for me is some of the major impacts of the pandemic.
Well, of course, I chose here in the introduction just to get us started. But one of the things that you also include, and I think this was particularly important for the introduction, you actually tell the reader how to use this book. Give me a little overview of what's in that part of that chapter.
So this is basically having a. There are loads. I've not reinvented the wheel with this book. I have not. There's not necessarily anything new in terms of what I'm discussing, but what I'm doing is presenting it in a way that is new now, and a message that people are perhaps ready to hear now. And one of the most important things that I talk about is that there are so many different programs that people can go on, different things that they can listen to. But actually, it all starts with us as individuals. We have to take responsibility for ourselves. And if you really want to make a change to your life, if you really want to make a change to how you feel and how you respond and bring joy and happiness into your life, it begins with you. And so the messages here really are all about you really need to have that genuine desire to want to change your life, and to really be prepared to do the work. There's no easy way round with these things. You have to kind of do the work on a day-to-day basis. Doesn't mean it has to be challenging or difficult, but you do have to do the work. And so that's what I talk about really in the book, in this part of the introduction, and then talk through the different sections and how you can use those sections to help you along your awakening journey and your path to kind of creating a better life for yourself.
I liked that because you gave us a summary. You gave the reader this sort of a summary and led them down a path to say this is what you expect. And then each one of the chapters or each one of the major sections, you expand on that idea. And I liked the fact that you used the word awakening in the title of each one of your big sections. The second, or actually the first section where we're talking about, is awakening to how your world is. Would you give, I picked out the things that I wanted to talk about in the introduction. What do you think is important for the listener to hear and the reader to think about in the big section?
Yeah, this section here is covers lots of different subjects and different areas of our lives. So, anything from looking at a judgment, how we see time, past, present, and future, looking at concepts like reincarnation, looking at religion, looking at education, sex and sexuality, all of these different aspects of our life. And the purpose of this section is to go, this is how it is. This is certainly from a metaphysical perspective. This is how we see these different aspects and how they differ from perhaps how society would have us kind of believe or have us understand or interact with. And so just the message here is really around that society that we live in has kind of created this separation and this isolation and loneliness. And when you start looking at things from a different perspective, which is the purpose of this section, it begins to open up your heart and your mind to actually be able to go, oh, okay, so actually this is a different perspective. If I look at it from this way, where actually I'm not alone, and these are some of the explanations and reasons why perhaps I went through this challenging time, or I had a loss in my life, or I've had an illness in my life, that there are reasons for it. and it helps to kind of widen and open up the perspective to be able to then dig further and deeper into, okay, so if that's the case here, what else might be in my life that I can come up with a really kind of logical and heart-filled explanation for?
I think that's a perfect place to start. If we don't really sit down and think about where we are and how our world looks to us currently, we have to do self-reflection. And a lot of what I hear you talking about is getting us to think about what's going on, because often, you know, this is true, the society is so busy and so filled with things, and there's so much noise, it's cacophonous, that sometimes we as human beings don't take the time to sit down and just be quiet and think about ourselves and our world and how do we see certain things. So this is really sort of a guided journey to get me to think about, what does my life really, really, really look like, and how do I really, really, really see my world? Am I on the right track?
Absolutely spot on. Really, that was the whole point of all of those, covering those subjects and those topics. It gives like an introduction, and then everyone has their own truth. And I kind of say in my introduction, I'm not kind of telling you what to think here. I'm just giving you some guidance so you can open your world up to kind of find your own truth. And that's the purpose really of that kind of section.
And each person is probably going to have a different interpretation, and that's exactly what you're looking for, right?
Totally. We're all unique. And although we have this beautiful connection between us as kind of men and women of the world, we all are unique and have a unique view of how we see the world based on our past experiences, based on how we grew up, where we grew up, the culture that we grew up in, etc.
So the next section is the beginning. It's the awakening journey. And several things, of course, jumped out to me, but I'm going to... 7 pillars of personal change, I thought was an extraordinary way to begin that particular section. Tell our listeners a little bit about what they'll find with the 7 pillars.
Yeah, the 7 pillars of personal change. Those 7 pillars were birthed over probably a 30-year period, and I'll explain why. Because not only is it based on kind of my own journey and how I used these pillars to actually go along my own path, but they were also birthed through my management career, then my teaching career, working with students to help them on their own personal development. I also did leadership development, and we worked on change an awful lot and behavioral change. And then from the research from my doctorate. So it kind of all came together, and I was like, okay, there are 7 steps here. So the first 2 steps are raising awareness and observation. And this is, the caveat here is always to do this without judgment. Because one of the challenging things that we do is we're often very, very self-critical. And so I always say, don't go into tackling. And just raise your awareness of where you're at, what you're doing, how you're interacting with people, what you're feeling, what you're thinking. Because you described it earlier when you were talking about how busy people are, and they often don't take the time to just stop. A very common thing that I hear with clients that I work with is that they get into bed at night and they're so tired they just want to go to sleep, and then their mind won't switch off. And I kind of say to people, it's because you've not been listening to it all day. You've been so busy doing that you've not actually taken the time to stop and listen to what your physiological self is telling you. And so that's why it then got, you're quiet now. I have your attention. Here you go. Boom, 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 boom. And so then it's talking to you and you can't go to sleep. So by doing this kind of raising your awareness and observing, it gives you an opportunity to do exactly that, to hear what the thoughts that you're thinking, to feel the feelings, to observe how you're interacting. And then pillar 3 is about making sense of it all. And again, it's very important to do that without judgment. I use some NLP tools, actually, when I'm doing that with clients. So I just, how many of these things that you are kind of seeing and observing, how many of them are true or false, for example? And if you've kind of written down for some of your, the mind talk that's going on in your head, with experience, a big chunk of that mind talk is often not true. And it's the making sense stage is then going, oh, right, okay, then. So that's what's going on for me. And once you've kind of done that piece of work, you then move on to, for me, the most important pillar. And the most important pillar is pillar 4, which is challenging beliefs. Under every behavior, underneath every kind of thing that's going on, there is a belief system that we have. And that could be, common examples are things like, I don't deserve success. I'm not good enough. I can't do it because of X, Y, and Z. And these belief systems are often limiting us being able to make change. And so being able to really challenge the beliefs underneath all of what's going on helps someone to really understand, okay, so if that belief system is there, I know that then I have the ability to change it. Then you come to the next pillars, which is around making the decision to change. So it has to be that conscious, I'm going to make this change. And then moving on to then the last 2, which is to testing out new ways of doing things and then adopting that as kind of your permanent behavior. So those are the 7 stages. And it's very cyclical. So, if you get to a point and, okay, so I'm not really making sense here, let's go back to the observation and the raising awareness and just do it in a deeper way. So then the making sense part is easier for me. So you can easily just go back to the beginning and start again.
And let me do one definition. NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, in case someone is sitting there thinking, what's NLP? What's NLP?
It is neuro-linguistic programming, absolutely.
The other thing that 2 things that I want to point out in this awakening journey is that you also talk about gratitude and you talk about breathing. I think both of those are extremely important for us as human beings. Breathing, of course. But you're not just talking about breathing. You're talking about a specific form of breathing.
That's absolutely right. I mean, when we're on autopilot and we're really, really busy, we don't breathe properly. We shallow breathe. We don't get enough oxygen into our lungs. And so you can kind of bring breathing into times to make yourself stop off and come off autopilot and actually have that kind of time to yourself where you just stop and be. And so breathing is a good way of doing that to help you to kind of switch off the mind and to just be in the body. And it has so many physiological benefits. It's just amazing. And it sounds so simple. You just need to breathe, but it's just amazing. And the exercise that I put in there to help people with that is just something that's really simple and easy to do. And then the other part in relation to gratitude. Gratitude is so important in shifting mindset from a negative mindset to a positive mindset. If your glass is half empty and you tend to look at things kind of in a negative way, sitting and doing the gratitude practice and going, well, what am I actually grateful for? Well, I'm grateful for the roof over my head. I'm grateful for the food on my plate. I'm grateful for my partner, for my children. I'm grateful for nature, for the sunshine, for the rain. You start kind of shifting your perspective from negative to positive. And it's a really simple but powerful way of making that mindset set shift.
There are just so many things we can talk about. I'm having trouble not going, but this, but that, but this, but that. So we have to go through. I'm enjoying our conversation so much. The next section really gives the reader the tools. This is their toolbox to support their awakening. Tell me what you think the most important pieces are in that section.
I
know, it's hard. I know.
I think it's the top of the list, which is meditation. And it's really interesting because I actually say to people, a lot of people can't just instantly meditate, particularly if they are so used to being really busy and really are on autopilot a lot. And so I kind of talk about different types of meditation, of how you can ease your way into meditation. I also have, I've written 6 guided meditations, and I will mention that we can talk about kind of what you'll find on my website that's under construction at the moment later, but I actually have recorded the guided meditations. One of them is going to be available for free, and then the others to be able to purchase on the website. And they are kind of tools there to, guided meditation is really perfect for people who want to ease their way into meditation. And so that's really, for me, one of the kind of top tools. The other tools are there, actually, they came from research from the doctorate as the things that many of the respondents to the questionnaires and the interviews that I did actually used in their awakening journey, so that they were drawn to particular practices that they as individuals found useful to help them with healing and with supporting their connection to their soul, to their spirit, to other realms. And so they're kind of, I give you an overview, and in the introduction there I talk about whichever you feel guided to. Here's an explanation, again, to kind of demystify what they actually mean. So, I talk about Reiki, for example, what actually is Reiki, and I kind of give that explanation. So it's easy to understand, oh, right, okay, I get that. That feels like that might be for me or not. So that's what the purpose of this toolbox is.
I really love what you said about meditation. I think so many of our listeners have probably heard about meditation, but don't really understand how to start, what it feels like, how it should feel, what should you do, what are the steps, do I really have to sit there and be quiet? I mean, I'm sure that they have all of these questions, and you've really included so much information in that toolbox section that I think it's really, really important. And that alone, I think, would be worth picking up a copy of the book so that you would actually learn how to meditate. The next section, I love the title of Awakening to the Magic in Your Life. Tell me the important things that are in that particular section.
Well, this section really is about when someone really starts on their awakening or their path, their spiritual path, or is kind of all going back to basics and then going down that path. There are a number of things that then start coming up for them. And again, some of this stuff came from my personal experience. Some of it comes from the research from my doctorate. And so there are some heads up in this section, a little bit like these are some of the physical and spiritual things that may well happen for you, feelings and emotions that come up. So this is about understanding, okay, so this is the path, this is the journey, and these are the things that start to change within me and in the world around me as a result of the journey that I'm taking to my true self. I cover certain things like sleep, dreams, and dream interpretation because there tends to be, with a lot of people who are going on this path, is they start to get dreams that start coming up for them that, well, what was all that about? That's really strange. And it just gives them that, right, okay, this is likely to happen for you. And so when it happens, it's not a super surprise. And so you can go, okay, so now I can look into dream interpretation a bit and maybe feel into what's going on for me and what messages are coming through. And it's the awakening to the magic in your life. It's like, this is an amazing, wonderful, exciting, magical roller coaster dragon ride of amazing stuff that happens. And, some of it, there are ups and downs on this path. But actually, when you start kind of looking to all of the wonder, and you use the tools like gratitude and things like that to see what's happening in your life, you start to see all of these things that happen. We start to go through this process of healing and of being able to view the world from a different perspective, from a different viewpoint. And I think it's important to understand here that change happens in our lives from within, and then you start to see it in the outer world. It's not the other way around. Too many people strive to change things in their outer world and spend so much energy doing it, when actually, when you start within and you change your perspective, when you change, what's going on within you, the magic really does happen in your outer world. And this section really kind of gives you a number of other tools as well to help you with that. Things like metaphysical cord cutting, for example, decluttering your life. These are all different things that you can use to help you in the journey to your true self.
I just love this. We have given our listeners an overview of the book. I would like to give them the opportunity to hear some of the book. Would you share a small part of it with us?
Yeah, I'd love to. This is actually from the beginning of the book, but it kind of summarizes for me kind of the book in itself. So I'm gonna start from now. Following the path of this awakening brings you closer to your true self, helps you to get rid of any false, unworthy ideas about yourself, and allows you to walk onto the path of your greatest potential, one that you may not yet be aware of. Your inner magic is the light of your true being, the source of your own truth, the everything you could ever hope to or dream to be. It is the energy of your divine being that is always there for you every minute of every day of your life, even in the darkest times.
Perfect choice to share with our listeners. I know that they have been listening to you and listening to us talk, and I'm sure that they're saying to themselves, okay, where can I find the book? So let me tell them. Go to Amazon. Very simply, if you've never done that, simply put Amazon in your browser, click, and it'll bring you right to the home page. You'll see a big search box that's right there. It's sort of a light gray, and it's a long, kind of a rectangle. Here's the name of the book, and let me spell Dr. Pickston's last name for you. The title of the book is Awaken and Journey to Your True Self by Dr. Merlin, MERLIN, Pickston, PICKSTON. Put that in your search feature, click on it. The book will come right up with its lovely cover, and you'll see on the right-hand side the two words, look inside. Now, if you've never done this before, click on those two words. Magic happens when you click on those two words. The book will open, and you will be able to read an excerpt from the book. You can also purchase it right there on the Amazon website. And I know, Dr. Pickston, that some people would prefer not to purchase from Amazon. They would like to purchase from somebody who is a little smaller or a little bit less known. Are there some other places that the book is available?
Yes, in North America, it's available on Barnes & Noble, so barnesandnoble.com. In the UK, it's available on waterstones.com, which is a UK bookseller. So those are two other alternatives.
Perfect. Now, you mentioned your website earlier, and you mentioned that it was under construction. What else will be on that website when our listeners go there and find it? And let's give them that address so that when it's completed, they'll be able to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the address is www.merlinpickston.com. So it's just my name.com.
It's easy to find. That's great.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that there will be an example of the meditations and that there will be some meditations that our listeners could purchase. What else will they find there on the website?
So what else they're going to find is ways in which that they can work with me in a deeper way. So I'm going to have a number of ways in which people can connect with me and work with me, whether that be on a one-to-one basis or in some group programs which are going to be launching later on this year. So I guess my focus here is about understanding that, I kind of just want to help people. And this was the whole purpose of the book and the way that I kind of work with people. And it's important to understand that whenever you connect with me, it's always on a very deep kind of heart level. And so the clients that I work with are always joyful and happy. And it's always very a really beautiful time that we spend together. So you will be able to kind of find information about me and about how you can work with me on the website. And there are some other programs that I also run, which are also going to be available on there. The one meditation you can download for free, and then the other 5 are then are going to be available for purchase as well.
Now, you're also on Facebook and Instagram. How may I find you on Facebook and Instagram?
So if you actually search on Facebook for the title of the book, so Awaken and Journey to Your True Self, the page should then come up, and the title of the page is linked to the kind of my school, which is the Phoenix School of Ascension. And so that's how you could either use both titles, either the title of the book or Phoenix School of Ascension, to actually search for me on either Instagram or on Facebook.
Perfect. This has just been wonderful. I have enjoyed our conversation so much, and you've given our listeners so much to think about. When they pick up a copy of Awaken and Journey to Your True Self and they sit down, this is not a book that you'll just in one sitting begin to read and read till the end. This is a book that you'll begin to read and you'll think about it, and then you'll read some more, and then you'll think about it, because there are applications along the way that you'll want to make in a personal way. But when our listeners become readers and they picked up the book and they've gone through and they're coming to the end and they finish the book, what do you, as the author of this work, want that reader to take away when they finish the book?
The core message is that they have control of their own lives. So they have the power within them to be able to make all of the changes that they want to make to be able to create a beautiful, happy, joyful life. That they have the power to do it within them, and that the book is there to provide them with the tools to help them to do that.
Dr. Pickston, this has just been a delightful, informative, and thoroughly enjoyable time that I've gotten to spend with you today. Thank you so much for being my guest on Books on Air.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. Now
remember, you can find Awaken and Journey to Your True Self by Dr. Merlin, Merlin, Pickston, Pickston, on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You've been listening to the Books on Air podcast, brought to you on webtalkradio.net. You can also hear this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. I'm Suzanne Harris, and I so hope that you'll join me for our next Books on Air podcast, because remember, you never know who's going to be here, and you never know what we're going to talk about. Thank you so very much for listening.